Today's reading comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 11. I'm reading the Common English translation of the Bible. A certain man, Lazarus, was ill. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This was the Mary who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent word to Jesus saying, "Lord, the one whom you love is ill." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This illness isn't fatal. It's for the glory of God, so that God's Son can be glorified through it." Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus. When he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was. After 2 days, he said to his disciples, "Let's return to Judea again." The disciples replied, "Rabbi, the Jewish opposition wants to stone you, but you want to go back?" Jesus answered, "Aren't there 12 hours in the day? Whoever walks in the day doesn't stumble because they see the light of the world, but whoever walks in the night does stumble because the light isn't in them." He continued, "Our friend Lazarus is sleeping, but I am going to wake him up." The disciples said, "Lord, if he's sleeping, he will get well." They thought Jesus meant that Lazarus was in a deep sleep, but Jesus had spoken about Lazarus' death. Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus has died. For your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there so that you can believe. Let's go to him." Then Thomas, the one called Didymus, said to the other disciples, "Let us go too, so that we may die with Jesus." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was a little less than 2 miles from Jerusalem. Many Jews had come to comfort Martha and Mary after their brother's death. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, while Mary remained in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask, God will give you." Jesus told her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha replied, "I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whomever believes in me will live even though they die. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She replied, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, God's Son, the one who is coming into the world." After she had said this, she went and spoke privately to her sister Mary. "The teacher is here and he's calling for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to Jesus. He hadn't entered the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were comforting Mary in the house saw her get up quickly and leave, they followed her. They assumed she was going to mourn at the tomb. When Mary arrived where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died." When Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had come with her crying also, he was deeply disturbed and troubled. He asked, "Where have you laid him?" They replied, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to cry. The Jews said, "See how much he loved him." But some of them said, "He healed the eyes of the man born blind. Couldn't he have helped Lazarus from dying?" Jesus was deeply disturbed again when he came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone covered the entrance. Jesus said, "Remove the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said, "Lord, the smell will be awful. He's been dead 4 days." Jesus replied, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you will see God's glory?" So they removed the stone. Jesus looked up and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. I know you always hear me. I say this for the benefit of the crowd standing here, so that they will believe that you sent me." Having said this, Jesus shouted with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his feet bound and his hands tied, and his face covered with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go."
Not long after my mom died, I found myself at her house along with my dad and my sister, and looking at all of the things that were hers and just sort of wondering what to do with all of it. You would think that cleaning out someone's things is fairly logical, pretty easy. There's the sorting, the packing, the deciding what to keep and what to give away. But what I discovered is that it's really not about all that stuff. Every drawer held a memory for me. Every piece of paper carried a story. There were recipes written in her handwriting, books she had been reading just a couple of days before, clothes that still carried her scent. And every time I moved to touch something, there was this mix of love and grief and hesitation. Part of me wanted to rush through it and just get it done. Another part of me wanted to close the door and leave everything exactly as it was. You stand there and you think, I don't know if I'm ready to do this. And that's the landscape of today's gospel. Martha and Mary are not dealing with abstract theology. They're dealing with a body in a tomb. The house is full of mourners. The air is thick. The future feels different than it did a week ago. And Jesus, the one they love and trust, didn't get there in time. It's a kind of world that feels fragile and uncertain. And we know something about that kind of world. We feel the weight of what's happening in our country. We feel the fear and disruption caused by ICE activity in our community. We're wrestling with deep questions about who we are and who we are becoming. We're even having those conversations here at Colonial with a possible change to our name. There's grief in that. There's anxiety in that. There's a sense that something is ending and something else is beginning, and we're not entirely sure what it will look like. It can feel like standing outside a sealed tomb, unsure of what comes next. But into that uncertainty, Jesus walks. But did you notice that Jesus isn't in a hurry? This detail has always struck me. Jesus does not sprint to Bethany the moment he hears Lazarus is sick. He waits. By the time he arrives, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days, long enough for grief to settle deep into the bones. And Martha says what so many of us have said in moments of loss and fear: Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. You can hear the ache in those words. If you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. If you had been here, things wouldn't be so unstable. If you had been here, we wouldn't be so afraid. But Jesus doesn't scold her, doesn't correct her tone, doesn't offer a quick explanation. He just stays with her. And he says something that is not abstract, not postponed to some distant heaven. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. Not I will be someday, not later. I am. You see, in John's gospel, resurrection is not only about what happens after death, it's about what happens in the middle of death-like realities. It is life pushing back against fear. It is hope breathing in rooms that are thick with grief. It is courage rising under pressure. Resurrection is what happens to us when love refuses to retreat from us. And before the stone moves and before Lazarus walks out, Jesus weeps. I've always found that to be very personal and powerful. The Word made flesh stands at a grave and cries. Jesus does not bypass sorrow, does not minimize loss, does not explain it away. He enters into it. When I was standing at my mom's house, holding her things that meant so much to her and to me, there was no theological answer that made that ache disappear. There was just love and grief and the slow work of letting go. And if you are carrying something like that right now, whether it's personal grief or fear for your neighbors who feel targeted or unsafe, or exhaustion from constant headlines or uncertainty, you are not failing at faith. You are in holy company. For God is not impatient with your grief. God is not embarrassed by your anger. God weeps with us. So here comes the turn in the story. Jesus walks toward the tomb and says, "Take away the stone." And Martha very practically says, "Yeah, but it's going to stink." And in other words, this is going to be messy. This is beyond repair. This is too far gone. We say that about ourselves and about the world all the time. I can't get there from here. This system is too entrenched. This fear is too deep. I'm too small. We're too late. But Jesus does not argue. He calls, "Lazarus, come out." He doesn't give a lecture about mortality. He calls your name in the dark. And Lazarus comes out still wrapped in his grave clothes. When I walked out of my mom's house with boxes in my arms, I was not over it. I was not suddenly healed. I was still wrapped in grief. Resurrection in this story does not mean instant perfection. Lazarus is alive, but he is still bound, still tangled, still needing help. So Jesus turns to the community and says, "Unbind him and let him go." And that instruction is not about Lazarus, it is about us. You see, we are being called out of something right now. Out of fear that says we should shrink, out of silence when love demands courage, out of old assumptions about who we are allowed to be. But we will come out wrapped in grave clothes, right? We will still have doubts. We will still have caution. We will still carry the imprint of what has happened to us and shaped us. And that is where, my friends, we come in. We are invited to unbind one another. Unbind one another from fear. Unbind one another from shame, from the idea that love must stay quiet to stay safe. Unbind one another from despair about what is happening in our country and in our community and in our own lives. When neighbors are hunted or vulnerable, we unbind through our solidarity, through our presence, through refusing to look away. Resurrection is not denial of reality, but defiance of despair. Raising Lazarus is what sets in motion the events that lead to Jesus' own death. After this, the authorities decide he is too dangerous. Resurrection defies fear. If faithfulness feels risky, that does not mean we are doing it wrong. It might mean we are walking in the direction of real life. But we are not naive people. We know the world is complicated. We know change is uncomfortable. And we know grief does not vanish overnight. But still, the voice of Jesus speaks into our particular life together, here and now, and Jesus says, come out. Come out of hiding, out of numbness, out of the belief that the church's best days are behind it. Come out of fear that love is not strong enough. And we do not come out alone. We come out together, and we unbind one another as we go. We may feel like we are standing at the edge of something uncertain. It may even smell like death. But the one who weeps with us is also the one who calls us by name. And that, my friends, is good news. Amen.